reaching the low single figures, 4 or 5 degrees, 6 or 7 degrees under the cloud. Elsewhere, though, a different story. We're up into double digits, 11 or 12 degrees in the southwest, and it should feel fairly pleasant, particularly compared to recently across the far north and east of Scotland through Saturday afternoon. Into Saturday evening, that rain band pushes into the southeast, and we've got a risk of thunderstorms developing across the southwest. Now, there's a further change on the way for the start of next week to more settled, but once again, colder weather. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 8 million followers across social media. Thank you for making us a part of your daily life.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There are considerable hold-ups on the M8 westbound between junctions 27 and 28 due to a traffic incident. Congestion is reported on the M4 eastbound at junction 32, Corriton. On the M1 southbound near Wakefield, a collision has closed one lane, causing 40-minute delays. A collision on the M6 southbound near Warrington results in 30-minute delays. The M11 northbound exit slip at junction 7 in Essex is shut due to a load spillage. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Cross Country report major disruptions in the Stafford and Stoke-on-Trent areas. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dewbs & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
They'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name's Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Good evening, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Dawn Neeson and you're watching Dewbs & Co. We've got a cracking show for you coming up in the first hour. Sir Keir Starmer is in South Africa for the G20 summit, but questions over his leadership continues to follow him. But he's determined to stay in number 10 until 2034. What do you make of that one at home? And of course, the COVID inquiry has been branded by some as a £200 million waste of money after concluding that lockdowns could have been avoided entirely. It's after the public inquiry found that the government's failure to take COVID-19 seriously cost 23,000 lives in the first wave of that pandemic. And spare the pubs in the budget. That's the plea from Wetherspoons and me, to be honest with you. That's Chief Sir Tim Martin there coming up with that one, and I'm backing him all the way on that one. Want to know what you think of that? And I've got a brilliant panel for you tonight. Co-founder of Together Association, Alan Miller, and political commentator and Labour councillor, Sebastian Salek. There they are, looking fabulous, aren't they? But first, it's time for the news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Dawn, thank you very much. The top stories this evening. Sir Keir Starmer has faced down the plotters who want to bring him down and told GB News he wants to be the Prime Minister until 2034. The Prime Minister has been rocked in recent weeks amid claims that Labour backbench MPs want to replace him with a rival such as Wes Streeting, Shabana Mahmood or Ed Miliband. Allies of the Prime Minister made clear he would fight any leadership challenge last week. Earlier this week, Sir Keir gave an interview to the Daily Mirror to say he would definitely fight the next general election. However, speaking to GB News' political editor Christopher Hope, Mr Starmer reiterated his pledge at the election to be Prime Minister for 10 years. Millions of households will see a rise in gas and electricity bills this winter after regulator Ofgem outlined its next price cap. The 0.2% increase will take effect at the start of January, and it means energy bills will rise by about 28 pence a month for the average household paying by direct debit. The unexpected increase comes after experts said they expected prices to fall by 1% because of lower wholesale energy prices. The former leader of Reform UK in Wales has been sentenced to 10.5 years after he admitted accepting tens of thousands of pounds in cash to make pro-Russian statements to the media and European Parliament. 52-year-old Nathan Gill pleaded guilty to 8 counts of bribery on dates between December the 6th of 2018 and July the 18th of 2019. His activities included making pro-Russian statements about events in Ukraine in the European Parliament and in opinion pieces to news outlets. Following an investigation by counter-terrorism police, officers said they believe Gill likely took a minimum of £40,000 in cash and was offering to introduce other British MEPs so they could be bribed. The COVID inquiry is facing criticism by some for being a £200 million waste of money after concluding that lockdowns could have been avoided entirely. The public inquiry found the government's failure to take COVID-19 seriously cost 23,000 lives in the first wave of the pandemic. The inquiry says the government response to the pandemic was too little, too late, and said social distancing and isolating should have been introduced earlier. The report highlighted a toxic and chaotic culture in UK government-affected decision-making. But Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Alex Burghardt, defended the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
Let's remember a very stressful, intense, fast-moving environment in which everyone was trying to do the best thing for the country that they possibly could. I'm certainly not going to criticise the Prime Minister of the day, who had the most incredibly huge responsibility and who, as I'm sure your viewers will remember, very nearly died, I think in April of that year, but having contracted the virus himself and been hospitalised. And I remember that episode very starkly.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's ready for honest work with the US after receiving a draft peace plan to end the war with Russia. According to the US-backed plan seen by the Reuters news agency, Kyiv would be required to give up land and half the size of its army. If the deal goes ahead, Vladimir Putin would walk away with full ownership over the Donbas regions. Meanwhile, it's understood Russia will be freed from Western sanctions, rejoin the G7 and take back the majority of its frozen assets under Donald Trump's peace plan for Ukraine. President Zelensky said he expected to speak with the US president in the coming days.
It reinforced in me that basic principle that we have to work from where we are to the just and lasting peace. I know that's what President Trump wants, and he's been working to that end. But we must reiterate the principle that matters about Ukraine must be determined by Ukraine.
The G20's Leaders Summit represented a really important moment, Sir Keir Starmer told the South African president and meeting host, according to a readout of their bilateral meeting. The Prime Minister said it's really important to be at the gathering, which Donald Trump won't be attending. There are fears the US president's boycott of the summit will overshadow the meeting of world leaders in Johannesburg. Downing Street defended Sir Keir's travel there, saying he would use it to shore up support for Ukraine and make deals. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer is expected to approve China's controversial plans for a new mega embassy in central London. It comes amid speculation that the Prime Minister may visit Beijing early next year. Sir Keir insisted he would robustly protect the UK's national interests in response to the speculation. He said that no visit to China has yet been confirmed, while officials refused to comment on rumours about the planned embassy near the Tower of London. And finally, a Strictly Come Dancing star has reportedly been arrested on suspicion of rape. A man who cannot be named for legal reasons was arrested in October over an alleged incident last year, according to the Sun newspaper. It's understood the alleged victim was not a contestant or professional dancer. Hertfordshire police confirmed the arrests and say inquiries are ongoing. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Dewbs and Co with me, Dawn Nissan, for the sharp-eyed amongst you. I'm not the lovely Dewbs. She's got a well-deserved Friday night off. Cracking show for you and an equally cracking panel. A co-founder of Together Association, the wonderful Alan Miller, and the equally wonderful political commentator and Labour councillor Sebastian Sarek. And don't all shout at once about Sebastian, all right? It's a Friday night. Come on, let's be nice. Let's have a group hug. This show is, of course, all about you and what you want to say about everything, apart from Sebastian, obviously. gbnews.com/your say. Join in our conversation. We've got an absolutely packed show for you, so we're going to get cracking, shall we? Now, the Prime Minister is in Johannesburg for a gathering of world leaders at the annual G20 summit. The event brings together the world's 20 largest economies, although Donald Trump has chosen not to attend. Sir Keir Starmer, nicknamed Never Hear Keir by critics and some, well, just ordinary people, basically, says he spends too much time abroad. He's defending his travel schedule, though. He argues that a Prime Minister should act as an ambassador for British businesses overseas. Any case, to give us the very latest, we're joined now by our political editor, Christopher Hope, live from South Africa. Mr. Hope, good to see you.
Welcome to a busy downtown Johannesburg here on a Friday night. It's all looking quite fun here. But earlier we spoke to Sir Keir Starmer. He's here, of course. The G20 meeting of world leaders starts tomorrow. Perhaps we should call it the G19, because guess who isn't there? Donald Trump. He won't come here because he believes that there's the issue against white people living in this country by black people, and that's disputed, of course, the claims of murders and like by the black majority. But that's why he's not here. But they're all eyes on Ukraine and the like. But I sat down to him early to ask him more widely about politics, the increase in energy bills and his future, and also stopping the boats. Here's what he told me moments ago for GB News. Prime Minister, thank you for joining us today on GB News.
Not at all.
Bad news for those concerned about household energy bills going up by 0.2% fractionally next year, £3 annually. They're heading in the wrong direction. Bad news for the cost of living crisis. Why don't you allow more oil and gas licenses in the North Sea to bring bills down, give us more cheaper oil and gas?
Well, I'm very aware energy bills are too high. And if there's one issue, I think, for your viewers and for families and communities across the country, above all else, is the cost of living. And that's why, in the long term, renewables is the way forward. That will give us security and lower bills. In the meantime, it falls to government to provide support. Last year, we put in a discount of £150 on bills for 3 million households. I'm glad that we're able to extend that this winter to 6 million households to put that support in. But we must do other things as well to bear down on the cost of living. Yesterday, I was announcing the further rollout of free breakfast clubs, which is very important for parents and carers. We've also got the capping of prescription charges, the capping of bus fares, free school meals, free childcare. All these measures are important in their own right, but they're all important together because I'm very, very clear about the cost of living being the #1 priority for the government because it's the #1 issue for so many people across the country.
Last night you called Nigel Farage spineless twice over his lack of condemnation in your eyes of Sarah Potin's remarks. Why won't he? I mean, do you think he's racist?
Well, look, he's got an MP who says that I think she said she's fed up with seeing black and Asian faces on the television. That is a shocking and racist thing to say. And Nigel Farage has done nothing about it.
Is that racist then?
But in addition to that, the news is coming through today about the prison sentence handed down to the ex-leader of Reform in Wales, over 10 years for pro-Russian bribes. I think Nigel Farage needs to immediately launch an investigation into his party. How did that happen? And what other pro-Russian links are there between Reform and all of his members and people?
Is he fit to be PM?
Look, anybody who fails to call out racism, anyone who is pro-Russia is not fit to lead our country. But he must start that investigation. This is a serious prison sentence, 10 years for that involvement with pro-Russian bribes. He needs to launch an investigation. How did that happen in his party? And what other links are there in his party?
What's going on with China? Will you grant permission for their embassy in the city, despite the concerns that MI5 have expressed?
Well, so far as the embassy is concerned, that's a process, quasi-judicial, which means it's taken independently, and there's a date set for that. The general approach is to cooperate where we can, but challenge where we must. And you saw last week the robust statement that we put out about MI5 and the absolute determination that this government has to protect our interests. And that'll always be our first priority.
Siobhan Mahmood has said she's looking at a big increase in payments for migrants to return voluntarily. This could be many thousands of pounds. Why is that justified, paying them voluntarily to leave here?
Well, this is a pilot to see whether we can increase the number of people who are returning to their country. But what the Home Secretary set out this week was a very comprehensive and robust package which deals with what we call the pull factors, which are factors that make it more likely that people might come to the United Kingdom.
But it's worth paying more to make it work?
Well, we need to do three things. We need to work with law enforcement in other countries to stop people coming in the first place who shouldn't be here. We need to return people who shouldn't be here as quickly as possible. I'm really pleased that this government's done more returns of people who shouldn't be here, probably the highest number for the best part of 10 years. But we also need to address what are the features of our system that are making it a place that people want to come to, whilst of course keeping with the principle that where people are genuinely fleeing persecution, then of course we're a compassionate country.
Of course. But on the budget next week, you may be freezing income tax thresholds. The Chancellor said that wouldn't happen or wouldn't be extended on 2028 last year at the budget. How is that fair to working people? Will have nurses drawn into the higher rate of income tax?
Well, we will set out the budget in just a few days' time. But the principles are clear. It'll be a Labour budget with Labour values. That means it will be fair and it will do three things, or three principles. One is protecting our public services, including, of course, the NHS, where we put record investment in and waiting lists are going down. We'll make sure that we're cutting the debt, vitally important for our country, and that we're bearing down on the cost of living, which, for all your viewers, I don't doubt is going to be the #1 issue. So they're the principles that we'll take into the budget. It is important that we make the right choices against the background of, going back to the 2008 crash. People haven't felt better off. And then we had austerity, which destroyed our public services. We had a botched Brexit deal, which damaged our economy. Then, of course, we ran into COVID and we got the conflict in Ukraine. Against that backdrop, we must take the right decision. I'm optimistic about the future of the country, but it falls to us to make the right decision.
Of course, you established the grooming gangs inquiry in July. It's nearly Christmas, no chair. Victims are upset about that, not surprisingly. When will they get a chair at this inquiry?
Well, we're working to get a chair as soon as we can. It's important.
Weeks away? Months away?
It's important we get it right. As you will know, in inquiries like this, it's important that victims and survivors have faith and confidence in the chair. I would say what I very often say in these cases, that where there's evidence that can lead to a criminal investigation, it is right, and I will always support the criminal route, because my strong view is that if enough evidence to put someone before a criminal court, that should always be the first port of call.
Yes. And just finally, on your future, you said in the Daily Mirror this week, you'll fight the next general election. If you win, will you serve a full second term?
Yes, I've always said this is a decade of national renewal. I know that we're elected on a mandate of change. That change is bearing down on the cost of living. Do people feel better off? It's making sure our public services are turned around, and our NHS in particular, and people feel safe and secure in their community. I'll be judged on that at the next election, quite rightly, by the electorate, and every day that is what I focus on.
Prime Minister, thank you for joining us today on GB News in a very stormy...
It is a bit stormy,
South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Sir Keir Starmer talking to me about 3 hours ago here in South Africa, just as a massive thunderstorm came down. I think you could probably hear it on parts of that interview, really, really loud, a huge thunderclap. Twice, in fact, while I was trying to ask about Ofgem and energy prices, which seemed sort of strangely amusing in the circumstances. But the takeaway from that interview, Dawn, is two things, really. He's definitely willing to take on the fight with Nigel Farage. He said just yesterday he was spineless in not being tougher with Sarah Poach, the Reform UK MP, who said there were too many black and Asian faces on adverts, and so he says that is racist. That's the Prime Minister's view on that. He says there should be an investigation into that, and also into Russian links with Reform UK after the jailing today of Nathan Gill over those pro-Russian bribe allegations. That's why he's taking the fight to him, and that's why he said unless he does that, Nigel Farage is not fit to be Prime Minister. Now, we've heard back from Reform UK tonight, and they make clear that the PM needs to look at his own links with other countries first before he takes the fight to other people. And the second point, Dawn, before I go back to you, is he wants to stay in power till 2034. He'll be 72 then. People may wonder why he's saying that, given he's battling with alleged plotters in his party already, but he looks like he's going to carry on for as long as he can. He's going nowhere fast. Back to you, Dawn.
Christopher, just one very quick, deep, meaningful political question. Why are you sitting in a garage?
Of course. A garage? Oh, there on the video. Yeah, we weren't in a garage, Dawn. We were in a train operation. There's a big company in Derby which makes trains, and they ship them to South Africa. But because of the difficulty we had with the weather, we had to move inside, away from a glorious view of trains. So I wasn't in a garage, I was in a depot. But behind me there were trains and all sorts of things.
It did look like a garage, but thank you very much. Great interview. Thank you very much, Christopher Hope there in South Africa for us. OK, now let's get the thoughts of my panel on this. We have Alan Miller and Seb Salek with me. I'm going to come to you first on this one, Alan. We'll start with the end of that interview and then we'll cover the rest of it later. But this is he's promising to stand for another term, to run for another term. If he gets elected, he's going to be there as leader. Does that fill you with joy?
It's so preposterous, the idea that he's going to do this, that it's ridiculous. But it fills me with doom and gloom and terror. But the reality is that we've seen that there's all sorts of problems within his own party, others jockeying, Angela Rayner saying she's not, but jockeying. We're getting reports about Andy Burnham and all sorts of things happening. The big question is, what do the British public need? In all these issues where we get obsessed about an individual, I think, frankly, we've seen all sorts of things. We've seen promises broken. We've seen U-turns on a number of measures. We've seen things that were not in the manifesto imposed mandatory, like digital ID. The farmers betrayed, pensioners betrayed, businesses attacked, the public and workers attacked. And the idea that he goes to G20, someone who's been obsessive about net zero and then realises in the end that he has to pull back from it. This is obviously someone who couldn't say what a woman was as well. All of this is preposterous. What Britain needs are serious policies and resolutions to our enormous problems. And we've seen, actually, that what he called for as well during the previous measures under COVID, longer, harder, more strong lockdowns, have led to all the things we've seen, around 7 million on a waiting list that still have not been resolved with the NHS, a terrible situation for our economy, and on the story goes. So I think he is unfit, as it happens, and particularly when you look at the context of all the questions around the grooming gangs and the national inquiry and the fudge he's just done about the chair.
OK, Sebastian, do you, the honest question, right, you are a Labour councillor. Do you actually feel better off after 17 months of Keir Starmer's government, and would you be looking forward to him doing another, if they get elected again, another 5 years?
I think that question shows exactly why this is a 10-year project. We've fallen into a Tinder style of politics, haven't we? Anyone who's indulged in a bit of swiping will know how easy it is. You start talking to someone, and the next thing you know, you're going back into the pool for someone else. And we've done that with our leaders.
Dating Keir Starmer, are you?
I'm dating one woman. I'm going to marry her. I'll make that very clear. But we are doing that with our Prime Ministers. You think back to 2016, the average tenure of a Prime Minister has been less than 2 years. We're talking Greece or Italy levels of throwing away your Prime Minister. We need someone who can stay in post for a decade and do the work that has to be done to turn this country around. So even if you hate Labour, even if the thought of Keir Starmer turns your stomach, I say stick with him, let him do the work that we all desperately need doing.
Do you feel better off now, though? From when Labour got into power to now, do you feel better off? I think you're about to get married, you've got a lot of expenses coming up, but do you feel better off under this Labour government at the moment?
I mean, my personal finances aren't going to be indicative of the country as a whole. There are many people who will feel better off. But I can say yes or no. I can say yes to you there, but that won't help anyone.
You do feel better off?
I mean, I feel better off this year than I did last year, because I'm self-employed and I've had some contracts come in. But that's completely irrelevant. What I will say is if you're a parent and you are getting a free breakfast for your child every morning, you can drop them off and go to work, as thousands of parents are, they will feel better off. So it's not about me, it's about everyone at home.
You could always speak. Go on.
See, they have got a plan, and it's the fact that Sebastian is talking like this that somehow we should accept someone for 10 years when they've reneged on commitments they made before getting in, and they've done U-turns and they keep changing and attacking everyone. It's preposterous. It's a bit like saying, well, there's all these potholes, Sebastian, you're a councillor, and there's all these problems in the local community, but I'm not going to deal with them now, and actually they're getting worse, not better. But tell you what, stick with me right the way through and with this council, because at some point in the future they may get done. You are right, there is a problem with the febrile nature of politics. That's why we're seeing far more public getting involved in politics. Actually, people who've never been involved in politics before that can represent ordinary people, working people, as well as businesses. I'm excited about that. But the idea that we should stick with someone or a group of people that patently have completely lost control of the economy and everything they promised is mad.
OK, Alan, we will give you a chance to answer back. Don't worry about that. I always do. I'm quite fair like that. OK, now, coming up, the PM has launched another attack on Nigel Farage as well, branding him spineless and implying, I think personally, that he's racist. Certainly unfit to lead the country. We'll be coming for your thoughts on that one after this very quick break.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewberry, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson. You might have spotted the difference, probably from the accent more than anything else. Keeping me company tonight, and if you don't know it by now, what have you been doing? Alan Miller and Sebastian Salick, and they are both here with me on a Friday night, as are you, which is the most important thing, because this show is all about you. Get your messages coming in. I will read as many out as I possibly can. Now, Keir Starmer has launched an attack on Nigel Farage, accusing him of being spineless for failing to confront allegations of racism within his party. On his way to Johannesburg, the PM said the Reform UK leader must answer claims that he made anti-Semitic remarks while he was at school, and questioned why he has failed to take action over Reform MP Sarah Potchin's complaint about, the adverts full of black and brown people, and she wasn't over keen on it. He doubled down in a sit-down chat with our very own Christopher Hope earlier this evening.
You called Nigel Farage spineless twice over his lack of condemnation in your eyes of Sarah Potchin's remarks. Why won't he? I mean, do you think he's racist?
Well, look, he's got an MP who says that I think she said she's fed up with seeing black and Asian faces on the television. That is a shocking and racist thing to say. And Nigel Farage has done nothing.
OK, Sebastian, coming to you first. You are a Labour councillor, therefore you are on Keir Starmer's side. Branding Farage spineless. I mean, the rhetoric isn't very grown-up politics for a start, but do you think he's got a point?
I do think he's got a point, yeah. Look, I was disappointed with Farage on the poaching stuff. I think if you have a party that historically has let in people who've said some dodgy things, you want to be extra careful to get on top of this kind of language and stamp it out. And we debated it on this programme at the time. He should have been very quick to come out and to cry what she said, but instead he let it slide. And I think that's really irresponsible.
Yeah, but to be fair, Alan, I mean, Sarah Potchin's point was that demographically this country is still the majority white, and yet you do get an unusually balanced number of black and brown people in the adverts. That was the point she was making. So do you think, Nigel Farage is spineless for saying anything?
The irony of calling Nigel Farage spineless is unbelievable. If you think about the last 3 decades and where he has consistently, whether you agree with him or not, but put himself on the line and argued very unpopular positions to begin with, and then consistently gone out and argued them and won them over and won the majority of the public over to them, not least the Brexit question. But he did address it, didn't he? He addressed the fact that, in his opinion, and I'm not going to speak for either of them in this situation, but he did address it. I do think that it's the holy grail you're not allowed to criticise, that when you've got maybe 60 or 40% in London of demographics, but if you're out in the rest of the country, you have 5%, you're allowed to ask the question, why are adverts not reflecting that? You see, if some commentators say there's a sea of white faces, they're allowed to do that, and they're championed and celebrated if they're TV or media presenters. But if someone says the other thing, then it's seen as being automatically racist. But the bigger question here, and I think the one we need to focus on, is that what's being said is that because of what Nigel Farage said when he was a teenager, teenager, allegedly, in the playground and at school, that he's a racist. We're seeing this from a Prime Minister that's so desperate, so lacking in any policies, and a cabinet that are rift and they've got a terrible situation. We've seen that the Labour Party conference has weaponised race, trying to say that they're not about unity, they're about division, calling millions of British people racist who've got concerns with things like borders, with integration, and genuine questions about rape gangs. When we're looking now, we might have blasphemy laws and Islamophobia laws. I think the attempt now to say that, oh, what you did at school in your teenage years means that somehow you're a problem for the nation is so scraping the barrel and so desperate from a so-called leader that's got no solutions to the problems we face. And actually, right, mark my words, what I think it's going to do, it's going to reinforce support for Nigel Farage and reform by a public who's fed up by being presented in this way and being talked to as though the whole public are also racist and a problem, as we've seen from Labour.
I mean, these are allegations that when he was at school at Dulwich College, very posh college, by the very, very posh school, that he would sing anti-Semitic songs. Nigel Farage has denied this and said it's one person's word against another. What do you make of it?
So usually I would be oddly charitable in this situation. I've been a teenage boy, and a big part of being a teenage boy is you try to find the boundaries of what's acceptable, and sometimes that means you have to cross the boundary. And so initially I came to this thinking, OK, yeah, he said some silly things when he was young. Then I read the story. He allegedly chanted racist songs, regularly performed the Nazi salute, regularly, sung a song about gassing Jewish people, burnt a yearbook because there were more Patels than Smiths in it. That's a pattern of behaviour. These are allegations, but they are coming from a lot of people who are going on the record. And one of these people is a very successful film director. Now, you have to ask, why, if you've got this glittering career, would you put your neck on the line and come out and say things like this? It does you no professional favours.
Great question.
Great question. Go on,
Why would you do that if you're in the arts fraternity, of which, by the way, I was on the Arts Council and I was in the music industry, and you've got a sector dominated by a woke approach that hates Brexit, that hates Nigel Farage? Why would you say that?
So are you suggesting this person is lying?
Why would you say that, right? So I don't know, I wasn't there, these are allegations. But the point is, we've got a Prime Minister that's got a party when every week we see all sorts of anti-Semitic things being chanted in our streets. We see
not from the leader, not from Keir Starmer.
Being called.
This is Nigel Farage himself.
Hold on, let me finish. And we've got a situation where Labour still has enormous problems in lots of constituencies around the country in dealing with it. So I think the idea of talking about when someone was a teenager with these issues and not addressing some of these bigger issues and then trying to weaponise division when we should be talking about unity, that's where the big problem is. I find it highly, highly desperate.
Alan, I'm really concerned that you're defending a pattern of behaviour, and I'm going to say it again.
Allegations,
chanting racial
allegations. Pattern of behaviour, they're not the same thing.
Allegations of a pattern of behaviour, chanting racist songs, regularly performing Nazi salutes, singing songs about gassing Jewish people, burning school yearbooks. If you are saying that you think this is going to make people go out and vote for reform, I want nothing to do with those people because I want nothing to do with this behaviour.
OK, now, thank you very much for that. Very, very strong opinions from both sides there. Let me know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. Now, we just move on to the right reply. Reform UK MP Sarah Pochian has previously apologised, saying, my comments on a Talk TV phone-in earlier were phrased poorly, and I unreservedly apologise for any offence caused, which was not my intention. And in response to the claims of Nigel Farage's anti-Semitic comments made in The Guardian, a spokesman for Reform UK says these allegations are entirely without foundation. The Guardian has produced no contemporaneous record or corroborating evidence to support these disputed recollections from 50 years ago. OK, and responding to Starmer's comments about his unfitness to be PM, Nigel Farage has said the Prime Minister needs to urgently investigate the links with the Chinese Communist Party within the Labour Party. Spies have been discovered donating to Labour MPs, and there has been a mysterious collapse of a recent spy trial. Perhaps he needs to look closer to home. Indeed. OK, now, coming up, the COVID inquiry, yes, I know, but it's got a lot of you angry, has been branded by some as a £200 million waste of money after concluding that lockdowns could have been avoided entirely. We'll see you after the break for that one.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. Heavy rain and strong winds likely in Italy and Croatia for the first part of the weekend. Meanwhile, it's fine and sunny for most of Spain and Portugal. Chance of some showers for Madeira and also across the Canaries. Sunny but not particularly warm across much of Spain and Portugal. Wet and windy weather, especially for southern Italy, Sicily and parts of Croatia and mainland Greece. Many of the Greek islands dry and fine on Saturday, but it will be cloudy here on Sunday. By the time we get to next week, it looks a little warmer for Rome and Dubrovnik.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Another cold evening to come across southeastern areas, but elsewhere it will turn much milder, and the milder feel will be felt for all by tomorrow. That's because we've got a weather front moving in from the west that will introduce that milder air as well as some rain and cloud. And this evening that rain will push across parts of Northern Ireland, much of Scotland and into parts of North Wales, Northern England through the early hours of this evening. Staying dry ahead of that across many central and eastern areas. The cloud will start to thicken as well. So after a chilly start to the night, temperatures will rise by tomorrow morning. They'll actually be closer to 4 or 5 degrees. Clearer skies as well developing behind this weather band across Northern Ireland and much of western Scotland in particular. So here will be a relatively fine start to the day. Still quite a few showers around though across the Shetland Isles, parts of the Western Isles and the Highlands, but most of these showers will be falling as rain, which will make a difference. And clear skies across much of Northern Ireland will bring a bright and sunny start to the weekend. Very different story though for England and Wales. There's a lot of cloud around along with this weather front. Some heavy bursts of rain, particularly across the mountains of Wales, parts of the Pennines as well. So we could see that mixed with snowmelt bringing a few localised impacts from the rainfall. But otherwise it's going to be a generally pretty dull and damp day for many central and eastern areas of England. Elsewhere though, it should brighten up as the day goes on, particularly across eastern areas of Scotland. Highs of around 7 or 8 degrees, and in the south and west we'll be reaching double digits for the first time in a little while. Looking ahead to Sunday, we've got a low pressure system taking centre stage. That will spread further spells of heavy rain through the country, particularly across eastern areas where it will linger into the start of the new week, turning a little bit brighter across the southwest, but it will be breezy. Now, as I said, next week it's looking relatively damp across eastern areas to start, but it should turn drier as well as colder. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK. We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Drivers on the A87 Skye Bridge should exercise caution due to high winds. In Essex, the M11 northbound exit slip at Junction 7 is closed due to a load spillage. In Portsmouth, a collision on the A27 westbound exit to the A3 is causing delays. The M60 in Trafford sees congestion clockwise between Junction 6 and 10. Additionally, road users in Derbyshire may encounter congestion on the A38 southbound. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Cross Country report major disruptions in the Stafford and Stoke-on-Trent area. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Oh, blimey, it's all kicked off here. I tell you, we should have actually been broadcasting what was going on during the break. These two can't keep them apart. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson, and keeping me company until 7 o'clock, and they're both still in the studio, which is astonishing, is Alan Miller and Sebastian Salick, and they really are hammer and tong, so you don't want to miss what's coming up next. Now, the long-running COVID inquiry, which has now cost the taxpayer more than $200 million, delivered a damning verdict yesterday. Here's what its chair, Baroness Hallett, had to say.
I can summarise my findings of the response as too little, too late. The failure to lock down earlier may have cost lives. Had the lockdown been imposed 1 week earlier than the 23rd of March, the evidence suggests that the number of deaths in England alone in the first wave up until the 1st of July 2020 would have been reduced by 48%. That is approximately 23,000 fewer deaths.
She also said a lockdown could have been avoided altogether if steps such as social distancing and isolating those with symptoms had been introduced earlier. And there was a toxic and chaotic culture in the government that impacted decision-making. Well, tell me something I don't know, to be honest with you, apart that last point. OK, now, let's talk to the panel on this one. Now, in my mind, OK, I don't know what you lot think, but in my mind, this is 200 million quid for lawyers to tell us stuff we already knew, but to do it very, very slowly, because that's what lawyers do, because they make money out of it. Sebastian, are you impressed with this inquiry and its findings?
I think we needed it.
Do you?
Yeah, I do think because the point of this inquiry is to look at what went wrong and, crucially, how can we avoid this happening again?
Did you get any answers from that?
Well, yeah, we've heard lockdown earlier. It was a lesson, and we saw that at the time. Boris Johnson was dilly-dallying, and in February he should have been taking action, but his ideology was front and centre, and it held us back and people died.
But Lady Hallett also said the inquiry does not advocate for national lockdowns. Far from it.
Well, yeah, her idea was that if you do something earlier, then you could have avoided lockdowns. The point is we did nothing, and that was the mistake.
Right, OK. Alan, were you impressed with it?
It's absolutely not the case that we did nothing, is it? It's the case that we had all sorts of measures, egregious, lockdowns. The only thing that was a precedent. The problem with the inquiry was that the terms of reference to begin with were utterly flawed because they did not consider the efficacy or the merit or the virtue of lockdowns in their own right. The one thing that we'd never had before anywhere, when we jettisoned the pandemic preparedness strategy, we jettisoned all the measures that had not ordinarily been done. So then you've got something that's using projections and modelling based on Niall Ferguson's approach as well, utterly flawed. And you've got lots of people who are not brought in and lots of peer-reviewed evidence that was not brought in. You've got facts such as when things were going down, lockdowns were brought in. So you've got a whole range of measures that just turn up and end up saying, we're going to spend another £200 million of your money to insult and gaslight you and say pretty much what Keir Starmer said, well, we should have done these things earlier and sooner, rather than assess and evaluate them on their own terms. And let's look at what we've also not considered in this report, an inquiry, is the collateral harms and damages to everyone, to the fact that our business and economy got eviscerated, which has an effect on everyone's health, the fact that children got impacted so badly, what it did to our elderly and people with all sorts of mental health issues and separating family, what it's done to things like heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and the COVID-only service where people were singing and dancing, but we weren't able to go in there. Across the board, this has been utterly insulting. The British public now are fed up of all of this nonsense. We had attempts to do all sorts of other measures, vaccine passports, mandatory jabs. We lost 45,000 care workers. None of this has been addressed. And now we're being told what we need for all the problems we've now got is digital ID. The public's furious and had enough of this. I think we should have a COVID inquiry, like we should have a vaccine inquiry and actually a proper assessment of it, but it needs to be done properly. This was not that, and that's why at Together and the togetherdeclaration.org we encourage the public to put pressure on everyone and say we're never going to have this again.
OK, Sebastian, I mean, it does seem, though, that the modelling on deaths, you know, discredited modelling was used, and they're still quoting it in this report as well. I mean, for example, they predicted 35,000 deaths in Sweden, whereas the reality was only 6,000. And many, many people that we relied on at the time and are still being used in this report were just nothing short of hypocrites at the very best.
We bring up Sweden so readily, but the reality is, and, you know, if you read the studies on this in academic journals, if they had adopted what we did with the lockdowns, their death toll per capita would have halved. If we adopted what they did, our death toll would have doubled.
No, that's not strictly true, because even though the initial spike, when they didn't lock down, Sweden was one of the few countries that did not lock down, when the initial spike was higher, but over the next 2 years it was much lower than the neighbouring Scandinavian countries that did.
Yes, but this considers the whole period. So that the conclusion from that is we can't use...
The point we're making is it's balanced out. And the Imperial College, which was quoted in this, using that modelling, they said 35,000 deaths in Sweden. The reality was it was only 6,000. So the modelling used then and the modelling used and quoted in this inquiry is discredited. So what have we actually learnt from it?
Look, I mean, the top line is that we should have locked down earlier, and the reality is we knew that at the time.
You'd be happy to lock down again, would you?
if we had another coronavirus,
Even
we weren't prepared and people were dying.
This is
so
not
coronavirus, which its mortality is tiny, and the fact that we then have all sorts of other measures where lockdowns demonstrably end up killing more people, not just in our own country, but internationally, globally, particularly damaging on the poor.
Oh, that's interesting. Hang on. Did you say that lockdowns kill more people than COVID?
And
can I have some numbers?
I'll explain again.
Yeah, this is important.
All the cancer impacts. The fact that you have a situation where we got a COVID-only NHS service, the fact that with strokes and heart attacks and across the board, the fact of the impacts of all the health measures, the fact that we lost, for instance, just in business and hospitality, 20,000 hospitality venues, of which all of those things impact health.
Okay, so let's put some numbers on this, because you've made a big claim here.
Let me just finish my point. And also, just to the point of Sweden and Florida and Texas and other areas, where actually an epidemiologist was the person in charge of things, we've seen that there was an ability to carry on society in this cavalier, draconian sense of dispensing with democracy, with freedom, with privacy, and having a draconian state come in and lock you up in your houses, which has never been done before, and cavalierly say, well, yeah, sure, we can have it again if we need it. That's why so many people are organised now and saying this is unacceptable.
Okay, so how many people died of lockdown, Alan?
I'll show you the figures. We print them on our site.
How many people died of COVID?
Well, that's a very good question, Sebastian, because the thing is, if you look at the actual autopsies, and if you look at if they died with COVID or of COVID, and if you look at the way they presented...
So just to be clear, you can't give me a number for either?
No, the thing is, because
you've just told me... Well, if nobody can, then
no, they can't, because what...
So hang on, Alan, let's just pause here, because you've just told me more people died of lockdown than died of COVID.
That's right.
And when I asked you how many people died of COVID and how many people died of lockdown, you couldn't give me a number for either.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying to you is, it depends what you mean, if you mean internationally and in Britain. But let's just say we take your question.
Give me Britain.
The point is about we've done loads of FOIs, we've put in loads of questions about who actually died, what were the autopsies done, what were people being signed off as dying of and with? Was it that you had a critical illness and you died with that with COVID, or was it of COVID? And on all these questions, to actually get to the evidence and the basis of all of this, it is opaque and we're not able to get clarity.
So you're telling me, no, I can't back up my claim with any figures?
My point to you is this. When we're told about how many COVID deaths are done and how terrible it was, there is an opaqueness to it that the people in charge refuse to make clear or incapable of making clear.
If that's true, how can you possibly say that more people died of lockdowns than of COVID?
Because I think that if you look at the situation,
because you think it
affects all of the economy.
Alan, when you make a statement like that, you have to back it up with data. You have to back it up with reality. You can't just say, I think it. We're not talking opinions here, we're talking facts.
I've already answered your first question.
No, you haven't.
About how opaque everything is, and we've put in FOI.
So if it's also opaque, how could you possibly make a claim like that? It's completely baseless.
Okay.
The problem with the situation, arguing the numbers, is that death certificates, as Alan pointed out, did say died with COVID, not of.
Fair enough. Then don't make statements that rely on those numbers to back them up.
The bottom line is nobody knows, not even the people putting this £200 million COVID inquiry together. In any case, thank you very much. Again, very strong opinions. Please do let yours come in. OK, coming up, spare the pubs in the budget. That's the plea from Wetherspoon's Chief Sir Tim Martin. So do join us for a drink next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Dewbs & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, there you are, you're back. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson, keeping me company tonight. Well, you know it's Alan and Seb, for God's sakes. I'm not introducing them again. They're here and they are... Well, they've got a drink in front of them now because the tavern is open, so they are kind of having a kind word towards one another. Now, Wetherspoon boss Sir Tim Martin is sounding the alarm over what he calls a punishing tax raid on pubs, warning that if he could push one more local to the brink. He's urging Chancellor Rachel Reeves to wake up before piling further costs on the industry, insisting that any move to hike levies risks accelerating closures on Britain's already struggling high street. Now, I'm obviously doing my best to support the pub industry. We went to the pub and brought this, right, by the way. It wasn't from a supermarket at all in any way, shape or form. So cheers, it's a Friday night. Sebastian, we really need to do everything we can to support our hospitality industry. And nothing I've seen so far that this Labour government have done is helping.
Business rates cuts, that's the biggie.
Right, and that's offset by everything else they're doing, national insurance, the workers' right bill that's coming in.
It's a big thing. You know, I work with local businesses in my community even before I was a councillor and I was a community leader. When we said, what can we do to help you? The thing they always said was cut business rates. Now, you can't do that if you are a councillor. You don't set them, but the government can. And that's why they're upping taxes on big warehouses like Amazon warehouses, cutting them for high street retail and hospitality businesses, which is so important. It's just fairer, isn't it? It's these independent businesses that we all really value, whether it's a pub, whether it's a bar, whether it's a cafe, that we don't want to see disappear, and it's a crucial way of doing that.
I don't want to see them disappear personally. Alan, you've been in this business for donkey's years, if you don't mind me saying. But, I mean, in 2024, there were 4,500 jobs in the business lost, 300 pubs closed. One pub is set to close every day this year with a loss of another 5,600 jobs. Labour destroying your business.
I think it's an enormous problem. We just talked about, you know, lockdowns and the impacts and harms of all of that, and that's had an enormous effect, as have all sorts of other measures. We've had a uncompromising attack in the licensing arena where people, particularly councillors, have said, you know, you're not going to have late licences. They've been punitive. They've been treating the public as though they're infectious all the time, rather than lighting up our streets and making them better and having exchange and trade. So we've seen a lot of nightclubs go out of business as a consequence of that as well. We've seen that we've got one of the biggest beer duties internationally, certainly across Europe. They should be cut. We should have a cut for VAT on hospitality. But we should, and I agree with partly on the business rates question, but you've also got to have efficiency. You've got to have the ability to execute and deliver across the board. And what we've seen also with a lot of local councils, we've seen Angela Rayner and others say it, and Labour councillors say it, that you've got to have low traffic neighbourhoods and you've got to have these quiet zones and you've got to have a situation situation where, you know, cars can't get in and out. So if you look at cities like Oxford and Bath, and the Lib Dems in Bath and Labour and Lib Dems in Oxford, where many hospitality businesses have gone out of business as a consequence of the restrictive car measures and the impacts of these things, all based on a spurious idea of net zero as it happens. So I think across the board we have to have a wealth creation approach that includes hospitality, and this was also about gambling and a moral tax as it happens.
OK, we have run out of Sebastian. Sorry, we've run out of time.
All good.
Just
Next time.
Sit and enjoy your pint. There will be a next time. Thank you both very much, Sebastian Zalek and Alan Miller. Thank you so much for your company. Thank you for your company. Have a wonderful Friday evening, but don't you dare go anywhere, because the wonderful Lee Anderson is up next. Here he is.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Another cold evening to come across southeastern areas, but elsewhere it will turn much milder, and the milder feel will be felt for all by tomorrow. That's because we've got a weather front moving in from the west that will introduce that milder air as well as some rain and cloud. And this evening that rain will push across parts of Northern Ireland, much of Scotland and into parts of North Wales, Northern England through the early hours of this evening. Staying dry ahead of that across many central and eastern areas. The cloud will start to thicken as well. So after a chilly start to the night, temperatures will rise by tomorrow morning. They'll actually be closer to 4 or 5 degrees. Clearer skies as well developing behind this weather band across Northern Ireland and much of western Scotland in particular. So here will be a relatively fine start to the day. Still quite a few showers around though across the Shetland Isles, parts of the Western Isles and the Highlands, but most of these showers will be falling as rain, which will make a difference. And clear skies across much of Northern Ireland will bring a bright and sunny start to the weekend. Very different story though for England and Wales. There's a lot of cloud around along with this weather front. Some heavy bursts of rain, particularly across the mountains of Wales, parts of the Pennines as well. So we could see that mixed with snowmelt bringing a few localised impacts from the rainfall. But otherwise it's going to be a generally pretty dull and damp day for many central and eastern areas of England. Elsewhere though, it should brighten up as the day goes on, particularly across eastern areas of Scotland. Highs of around 7 or 8 degrees, and in the south and west we'll be reaching double digits for the first time in a little while. Looking ahead to Sunday, we've got a low pressure system taking centre stage. That will spread further spells of heavy rain through the country, particularly across eastern areas where it will linger into the start of the new week, turning a little bit brighter across the southwest, but it will be breezy. Now, as I said, next week it's looking relatively damp across eastern areas to start, but it should turn drier as well as colder. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you so much for helping us to reach 8 million followers and subscribers across our social media channels. That's 8 million fearless Brits standing up for what really matters.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Road users should exercise caution crossing the A87 Skye Bridge due to high winds affecting driving conditions. In Derbyshire, congestion on the A38 southbound between the A50 and A5132 junctions leads to 20-minute delays. On the M11 northbound at Junction 7 exit slip, a load spillage closed all lanes, affecting traffic until later this evening. On the A27 westbound exit slip to the A3 in Portsmouth, a road traffic collision has closed one lane. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and cross-country services face major disruptions in the Stafford and Stoke-on-Trent area. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network network rate message or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And